All right, you beautiful bunch of nerds. Or should I say greetings to my favorite cinematic dumpster fire enthusiasts. Today, we're diving headfirst into the rabbit hole of studio multiverses, where Marvel, Warner Brothers, and Sony are attempting some alchemical dance so complicated, even Doctor Strange would be like, nah, I'm good. Now, before we get started, let's not forget that Sony is in the mix. And, well, Sony is that friend you love, but who always insists on bringing incredibly complex board games to parties. Like Monopoly, but with zombies complex. They tend to make things interesting, to say the least. So, let's get down to the juicy gossip. Rumor has it, Sony is considering buying Warner Brothers Discovery, Streaming, and Studios. It's like Sony found the One Ring and thought, what's the worst that could happen? But get this. If Sony buys Warner Brothers, it could mean the Spider-Man rights swing back to Marvel. And that's like Gandalf showing up on the third day, a glorious, spandex-clad salvation for Marvel. Finally, they could use Spidey without having to ask permission every 5 seconds. Bye-bye red tape, hello sweet, sweet freedom. But here comes the M. Night Shyamalan-worthy plot twist. If Sony buys Warner Brothers and consequently DC, they'd have to let Spidey go. Because apparently, in the grand rulebook of life, you can't have your Peter Parker and your Batman too. Who knew? Talk about having to choose between your children. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh boy, Marvel finally gets the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man at the same time. It's almost like we've put the Tesseract in Kevin Feige's hands. All we'd need is the Hulk. But you know, Hulk's just good for smashing. Not necessarily solo films. We've learned that the hard way, haven't we? But back to the whole Sony potentially being the new daddy of DC thing. This could be either amazing or disastrous, like trying to teach Balrogs to dance ballet. If Sony treats DC the way they treated Madam Web or Morbius, well, we better start stockpiling popcorn for the ensuing chaos. Might as well make a drinking game out of it too. And what about James Gunn? He finally managed to get the DC train back on the rails, and suddenly, Sony might come along and dump an iceberg in its path. Could they just let the man cook? Only time will tell. What we do know is, if Sony plays Dungeons and Dragons like they make movies, DC could become the new final boss that snaps the warrior's spine in half. So, folks, what do you think? Is Sony about to make history, or are we just witnessing another epic YouTube fail compilation in the making? Let me know in the comments, share this video, smash that like button, and subscribe. Because, as Gandalf would say, a like is never early, nor is it late, it arrives precisely when it means to. That's all for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. Remember, the multiverse is always open to those who aren't afraid of a little chaos. Until next time.